morning I'd like to show you a little bit about making rolling pins. I have a friend who showed me how to do it, and I really enjoyed it. And of course I've made several now for my family members, and they enjoy having them. So I thought, well, we'll pass that along and let you see how to do it. Now you just need to take just normal 4/4 wood, and you can glue it together as is and turn your rolling pin from that, or you can resaw each of these so that you've got narrower strips such as I've done here and here, and make your rolling pin from that. And what you do is just cut a bunch of these, sand them smooth of course so that they'll glue together good, and then put them together, and that becomes your block from which you're going to cut your rolling pin. Well, here's one that I've already put together, some maple and African mahogany, and I'll just go ahead and cut that right across there so that I can insert this contrasting color wood between them and make my cross. Now the friend that showed me how to do this built a little fixture for me and put right in there that I can use to saw this. So I'll just set that in there like that, and I'm going to put it in with the grain up this way so that when I cut it, the color on my insert is going to be across this flat side. For example, if I cut this way, I've got my circle here. If I should cut it this way, then the circle would be across the grain. So you can go either way, what you prefer. So I'll just take and clamp this in place. It's just feel a little more comfortable with it clamped there rather than with me trying to hold it. So I'll turn my saw on and we'll cut that off. Okay, we now have two pieces. What I'm going to do, we got to put that back together. And we'll take and put a piece of contrasting wood in there and glue it together like this. Now the thing is, if you clamp it here, it's going to want to spread that. It's going to want to make them go this way. So what you have to do is take a clamp, put it on the end, well, I've got it a little bit short here, get it about where I want it to be, okay, and I'll glue that up. Now you can see I'm not lined up quite here, I'm a little bit narrow, so I'll pull that together, line that up, that's pretty close right there. Then I'll take a clamp and put here. Now, since I'm just going to be clamping right in the center here, I've been taking just a piece of scrap wood and put right there so that I'm clamping all the way across. I'll clamp that, and if I leave this on as I clamp here, then I can't spread out. So I'll do the same thing on this side, put a clamp on there, glue it up, make sure it's flat, and let it dry. And then I'm ready to go. And then when it gets done, I'll bring it back and I'll cut the other direction and I'll have my cross. And I'll do the same thing when I glue it back together. Same principle, hold it this way and bring it back together till you get it to line up. So we'll set that one aside. Now, the other pattern that I use is making the grain go at an angle across the wood. Now if you use a regular 4/4 wood, you can see that it's a little bit wider, but it still makes a nice pattern. If you want to resaw those to about 3/8, then you get just a little bit more contrast. You can do it this way. Now, what I do, go ahead and lamp a block like I did before, except this time I'm going to make it basically double the width. so that it'll be, instead of 2.5 by 2.5, now I'm 2.5 by about 5, and then I'll cut my board from right out of this position, so that I've got these two pieces left over, and my block is going across the center here with this at an angle. So what I've got to do now is cut this line. If I lay this board, for example, across here, kind of line it up from this corner to this corner, and take a pencil, I can put a line across here and across here to give me some kind of a gauge as to where I want this to be. So I'll take a fence, put it here, and then we'll come back and line it up so it's just about right in the corner. Bring the fence over. Okay, that should go right into the corner. Now if I'm not sure how that's going to come out down on the other end here, I can take, like this old T-square, just a straight edge, lay across there, and I can see that I'm going to follow that line pretty close the way I've got it set up right now. So I go ahead, I'm going to move that over just a little bit, and we'll go ahead and we'll cut that off. Okay, cut that one. Now, what we want to do is, we've got a 2.5 inch block this way. We want to make it 2.5 inches this way. So I'll just set my table saw to the 2.5 inches. We'll come in here and we'll cut it like this. You can see now that I'm going to have, I think, a pretty pattern across this particular pin. So what I'm going to do now is cut this square here and here, then I can go ahead and round it. Now I'm going to take these two pieces that I've got left over here, rather than throw them away, I'm going to put them back together like this and make another rolling pin. I've got white on the outside, so I'll take a piece of walnut and we'll put it right in there. Now I've got just about the right width again, and I've got the contrasting colors, and so I'll just glue that up and do the same thing as I did last time. I'll have to protect the end so that it doesn't slide as I squeeze it, and then glue that back together, and I've got another pin, and I'll cut that end off square, this one off square, and I'm ready to go again. Anyway, that's the way to basically set it up. And then since I'm not the world's greatest turner, I'll show you basically how I set it up, but I'm not going to show you how my quality turning is, but this will give you an idea of how to get started. Okay, now I've gone to the chop saw and cut these ends off just to square them up so that I can better mark where the center of them are. When I cut this, I cut it to about 20 inches. And then when I turn it, I leave about a 1/2 inch on each end, and my rolling pin ends up to be about 19 inches long. Yep, the next thing then that I need to do is find this center. Now the way I do it is I have a little gauge that I can put right in the corner from put it on the right side, it'll work better. Okay, and I can mark it here. Turn it to this corner. And I do all four corners because my block's not perfectly square, and so my lines aren't going to be exactly together on each side. But as you can see, there's a little bit of space between them, so I go right in the center there, and that's where I'll put the point on the lathe. That'll be the center of my block. And the other thing I need to do is I want to cut these sharp edges off. I want to come in and cut it off, for example, right there, and then right here, and down here, and up here, so that I'm a little more rounded when I go to the lathe, and I don't have to contend with these sharp edges. Some of you can do that on your table saw. In my particular case, I can't do that. So what I do is I change the table on my bandsaw to 45 degrees, and then on the bandsaw I come in and cut those edges off. So anyway, I'll go do that now, and then we'll take a look at this on the lathe. Okay, as you can see now, I've got it mounted on the lathe, and I've gone ahead and cut these sharp points so it's a little more rounded, be a little easier to turn. And I won't take the time to go ahead and turn it now, but I will make it into a cylinder, and then I'll come back and show you how I mark off where we put the handles and so forth. Okay, I have turned down now to a cylinder, and since I don't have the eyesight that I used to, what I do is take a little gauge and make sure that I'm the same diameter all the way along the length of the pin. And the other thing I do is take a straight edge and just make sure that I don't have any little hills or valleys along there, so that I'm fairly flat, and I've got a good flat surface. So what I'm going to do now, I've got to mark where I'm going to start my cuts for the handles. Now this one turns out to be about 19 3/4 inches, so I'm going to split the difference. I'll come in about 3/8 of an inch and mark it, and about 3 3/8 and mark it. And I'll come in on the other end, do the same thing at about 3/8 and about 3 3/8. I'm going to turn this on. Okay, I've got a mark here now where I'm going to start my cut down towards my handle, and then here's where I'll part the end of it off with the end of my handle, and then do the same thing on the other end. And what I've done also, I've taken just some calipers and got those to the diameter that I want the handle to be, so as I approach it I can kind of gauge where I'm at, so I can tell about how big I want that handle. So anyway, we'll go ahead and cut those down now. Well, I've cut the handle now on one end, so that's the shape that I'll ultimately want it to be. And in order to do the other end to match, what I've done is I just take a gauge like this, put it in here, match the shape. Then when I cut this one, I can do it over on the other end so that they're reasonably close to the same shape, that they'll match good. Then of course I sand it smooth, and eventually finish it with a a food-safe mineral oil so that it can be used for baking and so forth. The only other thing that I do is I make a little hanger block. I just take, this is just 1/4 inch oak, and I cut a hole in it that's big enough to go over top of the neck, but yet small enough that it won't allow the pin to drop through, so that you can hang it up and display it. Basically just take it, cut this out, nail it, glue it to the bottom of a block, cut a little hole in the back for you so you can hang it or put a hanger on it or whatever you want. But it makes a great way to display it so that it can be kind of part of the kitchen decor as well as a useful item. So anyway, I think you'll enjoy making them. They're a lot of fun, they're easy, and they're really appreciated by most women, especially those who do any baking at all. So enjoy it. Have a good time with it. Thanks.